What up, everybody? This is Skobie 1. This is episode 1 of the Dialogue with the Frogs, and I am here with my man, Sketch, the motherfucking Cataclysm. You got your government on
Hello.
there.
I know that's how it goes.
You want to leave it there?
Yeah, that's
All
fine.
right. I don't give a shit. I could put mine in. No, I'm just How you been, man? You got new digs, I see.
I'm great, man. I'm
Yeah.
great. It's been a wild weekend, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
been great.
Word. So this is fun. I've never actually talked to you about the book other than just
Ever.
like, hey,
Like little back and forth.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you some shit while I'm working on it or something. But like, you've done every forward to the Towel of Minerva, so
Mm-hmm.
you've been involved since day one. Probably before
Yep.
I even knew we were writing a book. Mandy Moorehol probably hit you up and said, "I want you to write the forwards and shit," just like he always does.
Yep.
Uh, what? Let's talk about the book first, and then we'll jump into
Okay.
you, and then we'll go back and forth. We'll do it all. What do you think about this fucking thing? I
About all the books in general, like a broad strokes.
Yeah, what do you think?
Every time somebody asks me what the books are about, I don't really know what to say ever. But in general, it feels like I used to say with the first one, I would say it's like about like a bunch of like ethereal socio-political topics
Yeah,
with with a bit of satire, sarcasm, and yeah, humor.
yeah. And
It kind of paints a broad brush of the entire
well, that's exactly what I thought we were getting into too. And
Yeah.
because he hit me with volume one was like a bunch of shit, and no joke,
Yep.
he wrote on my toilet seat, like while
That's so funny.
my family's eating dinner, and he came in and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go write some essays," and he went to my bathroom and wrote essays. And then I came up to the studio because that's kind of how we do shit is on Fridays or Mondays, whenever day he comes over. Uh,
Yeah.
After I get the kids to sleep, we come upstairs and work on shit, you know. And one day he's like, "Hey, I want to write a book," and he hits me with a bunch of essays, and all of them were like about satire. So I thought this thing is about satire, and
Yeah.
so I had no idea what satire really meant. I thought it was comedy. That's my interpretation.
Could be
We
humorous, but not exactly comedy.
Yeah, and we start getting into this shit, and now it starts leading to Greek mythology, all this
Yeah.
fucking shit I've never heard of. I still don't know anything about it. I fell asleep the other night watching a play of Aristophanes the Frogs, right? Which is like
Yep.
what this kind of theme is behind us. I don't see. Oh yeah, there we go. Look. So like I
Yep.
don't know, it's about like coax, and I don't even know what these fucking words mean, but so I try really hard to get into this shit with him and understand what the hell he's talking about and what any of this stuff means. Uh, but I still don't know. I just finished book 5 last week, right?
Mhm.
So I still don't even know what any of this stuff really means or what he's talking
What's
about.
kind of a funny thing, I mean, I kind of think like maybe we should approach this from like the relationship
Yeah,
altogether.
yeah, yeah.
The between the three of us, our relationship altogether. So like uh we could go into like the music projects first
For sure.
because that kind of like says a lot.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
says a lot about how all this it's all unnatural.
Unnatural is a great way to say it.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
2020.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
go, and
so
I'll run.
2020, I got a message from Mandy Moorehol. Hey, my brother said that you'd be the one to contact about this track. I was like, oh yeah, what's the deal? Who's your brother? So tells me it's you. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah, I got this really weird track and there's spaces in it for raps to be on it. And he said that you'd be fully capable of handling that, you know,
Yeah.
this madness.
Yep.
I listened to it. I think how it went was I listened to it, I recorded to it, sent it, and he never received it or something like that.
Yeah.
And then so we had like kind of like a somewhat of a rapport, but not much. It was like kind of spacey. Then I didn't hear anything for like a long while. Then one day I'm going to the store and I get another beat sent to me. And I was like, oh, let me just put this on while I'm driving. And I'm like, oh, I could rap to this entire thing end to end.
Right.
So I went back to the house, recorded that, sent it. He was like dope or something.
Right. Yeah.
And
That
then
sounds like
I
him.
asked, I was like, hey, I never heard anything back about that other track. He's like, oh, I never got it. So I sent the other track again.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hey, you want to just make a whole thing out of this? You got any other stuff? He's like, yeah, I got another one with a little space on the end of it. And it was like over like an hour or something like that, or a
Right.
two.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, you want to put this out as like a project? Like, yeah. And this is like a Saturday. So
Right.
on the Sunday, I think you got the tracks on a Sunday, and
Sounds
then me and him discussed what we wanted the cover to look like. And it was like, oh yeah, I usually have animals on the covers of the projects. I'm like, well, but this is a collaboration. So why don't you send me an image and then I'll send you an edited version of that image back to you, and then you could send it back to me. We'll do like that
yeah.
until we think it's done,
Yeah.
and then it just we'll put it out. And I think, what was it, like 3 days later we had it out? It was
Probably.
fast.
Yeah.
It was fast. And then there was a second volume, and it kind of went like a similar way with the second volume. But that's kind of like, that's the rapport though. Like, and then the topics of the songs are really in the air,
Yeah.
like pretty much. And I realized at some point in our going back and forth that the songs could be about anything, you know?
Right.
So he might have a, like, if he has vocals on a track first, he might have a phrase or something that I'll hang on to, and it'll lead me in a direction, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the same direction that he was thinking of going in.
Yeah.
Um
I was gonna pull up the distro kit just so I know
oh,
exactly
this
what.
the second one is actually a great example, because the first track on it is the what is it,
Set an alarm if you have to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, about taking meds.
Right.
In the
You
in
know,
the
holy
last
shit,
quote,
that's what that's about?
what's up?
That's what that's about, taking meds?
Yeah, because he says something about taking meds and set alarm if you have to at the very end of it. And
That's
the funny
amazing.
thing is, I had just had this foray into like going to a therapist.
Yep.
I had 6 sessions with a therapist. So I mean, this kind of like, this will say like everything about like how I write these things for the books too, because that kind of set me on the therapist thing,
Right.
talking about meds. And I remember I sat in this therapist's office and I looked up and he had the book Denial of Death.
Okay. Yep.
I don't know if you've ever read that or
I haven't read
anything.
it, but I've heard of it. Yep.
It talks about heroes and things. But if you get
Right.
into like my verse knowing this now, it's me like literally envisioning like that experience of sitting in the therapist's office and looking around.
Ah, yeah. Yep.
So it ties into that
I
a
love it.
bit.
Yep.
And on that project I started to realize I could just write about whatever the fuck over these tracks, because I mean, it all connects anyway. Like, no matter what, if it's funny, if it's not funny, it doesn't really matter. And I started to get a little bit more emotional with it on that project.
Right.
So I think after that, I think the first in-depth conversation I had was with you about the books, though.
Right.
He might have asked me about doing the forward, but you were more in depth.
Funny how that works.
And I think you shared with me like where you guys were at with the book so far, and it kind of put me in a good headspace of like where I was going, because I was like, I have no idea what you guys are doing with the book.
I still don't know. I still don't know, man. I honestly dead ass every time, except for
That's so funny.
except for the last one, I kind of had a heads up of what we were trying to get into. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Be-
mean, you had an established kind of vibe too at
right.
that point.
Yeah, we have kind of a rhythm going. You know what I
Y-
mean? And
Yep.
so I was able to get ahead of him with some ideas and stuff to like make it a little faster.
Yeah.
But I still, he gets on these live streams, and I'll sit next to him, and it'll be some like Gnostic Informant's one of them. He's got this YouTube channel. He's got like 250,000 followers, and he
Who
talks
was that?
about
You just cut out.
sorry, Gnostic Informant.
Gnostic Informant.
Right. So he's got 250,000 followers on YouTube. He does a lot of like religious videos and history, and he comes from what I could say, like, not a religious background, but he kind of is like in between. You know what I mean? He's not like trying to feed one way or the other, if you ask me. But anyways, I'll get on a live feed with him and my brother, and they'll just go, and I will just be sitting there like a fly on the wall. Like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but this is fucking amazing that, like, it's crazy.
Gnosticism's like that too. Like, it's more vague than other things.
Yeah.
Other things too.
Right.
And I could see it just going to fuck off like in a direction.
Yeah.
On that.
It fits perfect for him.
I remember you sent me the first things, and I was like, oh, all right. So it still feels like the music does too.
Yeah.
Like, where I was like, he could say some random shit, and it probably fits with whatever I'm saying, or it doesn't matter. It's like a big abstract painting of sorts.
That's his approach to life, is just, it's chaos, and like the way he breaks up the book is like, the first section is what he calls like his initiation. So if you can't get past the first section of the book, which is the dialogue with the frogs and the dialogue with the dogs, right? It's art pieces and poetry and just random shit that's built in, and then the middle is where he kind of lays in his own ideas and stuff, and then the end are aphorisms or whatever we choose to put at the end. That's how the book's laid out. So you start the book with the chaos, and it's great.
It's pretty damn funny too. The first one, I think the first two are straight up the vibe that I get off of like Mandy Moorehol collaborations. Like, I think I did those two like very well for that. And then after that, I was like, nah, the world I'm in at the moment, this is kind of perfect to include in a project of this sort. And it kind of didn't matter what direction the book was going in after that.
Right.
It set a tone of sorts, but it also left room for more humor and stuff. I got really serious on the last like three, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
The first one though was hilarious because I think I had an entirely different forward.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how that played out, but I had an entirely different forward that was directly related to the pieces that were in there. And instead I tried to get like real clever with it. So I tore up what I had, and I ended up just taking a drive to go get coffee. And then I just was like looking around, and unfortunately for myself, I'm currently residing in Waterbury, Connecticut, and a drive around, drive around Waterbury is fascinating if you're paying attention to everything around you, and it painted the moment perfectly. So I injected that with I was like, oh, you know what I could do? I could just like steal parts of other people's forwards and like throw them all in there and shit. And for some reason, all of that was going on at the same time. And I'm like, this is kind of the perfect mishmash. I could stick other things in there too. And I was talking about like Philip K. Dick's Owl in Daylight, the book that he never finished.
Right.
And it felt like the same thing as this forward that was getting like slapped together from like different sources. And some of the forward pieces that I was like cribbing from were like saying exactly what was happening in the moment. And I was like, if I just keep going back and forth between what is happening, piece of a forward, and some other creative speech, like it'll get me to arrive at a point that feels like the Hella Kafka-esque kind of vibe.
Right.
What'd you think about that when you got the first forward?
Well, that's the thing, is like I remember reading it and going, it, because it sounded like a dialogue, like you just described, like now that you say, I was just looking around Waterbury. I mean, that's
Yeah.
perfect with the fucking scene in the gas station. The hey yo, you
Yeah.
got
Oh my
what do you
God, that
say? Hey
was
yo, you got
crazy.
some, I forget what he said, but
Oh, hold up. I got it right here. I pulled it up because I was trying to remember moments of that.
yeah.
Um, Regularly when I drive, I'll put on like YouTube
Uh-huh.
and things will just go from one video to the next video and whatever. I just leave it
Yep.
on.
Yep.
And at some point, what the fuck did I say? Drifted. What was it? Oh, angry movie review podcast rants over potholes and missed opportunities of yesterday. My eyes catch a man at a bus stop wearing a stained Hooters shirt, three sizes too small, and somehow a smile. This dude had a shirt on that was like riding up on top of his belly, and
Yep.
it was a Hooters shirt. And I'm like, I thought about it, I was like, I don't know where there is a Hooters anywhere near near this area. And at the
West
same
Warwick.
time, an Opie and Anthony clip came on that had Louis C.K. talking about the movie Gravity
Okay. Yeah.
and how pissed off he was at the movie Gravity. He's like, it feels like that whole movie's a fuck you to physics.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, a fuck you to physics is a great thing to include in a Mandy Moorehol project, I would say.
Perfect. Yep. I would agree.
Talking about like how she's spinning around in space and she's screaming. He's like, just close your
Oh
fucking
yeah.
eyes. You can't
Yeah.
feel anything. at all.
That's perfect.
But yeah, there was that whole thing with it was like a 7-Eleven or something, the gas
Yep.
station I was in.
Yep.
And these people were just yelling at each other across. Oh, you sell Slurpees here. That's what he said.
Hmm.
You sell Slurpees here, and somebody just chimed in. It's a fucking 7-Eleven.
Of course you do. We invented
Yeah, of
Slurpees,
course.
motherfucker.
But yeah, that shit was crazy. But yeah, I don't know. That felt like it set the tone for me.
I agree. And it's almost that Tom Waits thing where we
Oh
kind
my
of make
God, Tom Waits,
we,
perfect.
we make sense of it afterwards. You know what I mean? You like get it down, make sense of it afterwards. And like the more that I get into writing it, because it's literally he comes up here and some days I think volume 2, volume 3 are
Yeah,
very heavy, him just ranting and me just writing it down and trying to
yeah,
like write. No, I had like notes written down of like what the fuck did
yeah.
he say? Like, you know, and sometimes I've had him like just rant into the microphone into the studio so I could listen to it back later kind of thing. And it,
There's a
it all
Tom Waits interlude.
yep.
I don't remember exactly like how it's phrased, but there's this whole thing about he's talking about leaving a grocery store
Yeah.
and someone starts chasing after him
Uh-huh.
and he goes to get into the car and he's like they grabbed me by my leg and they're pulling my leg just like I'm doing to you right now.
That's perfect.
But
That's great.
that's the kind of vibe that I think of when I'm like writing some of these things.
Yeah.
The second one was different. So like there was a moment of doom spiraling through like Netflix documentaries
Oh,
about
yeah.
like all
Yeah.
kinds of all
I
kinds of fucking topics, and I started to realize like every one of them just makes you not want to eat any food or do anything at all. Like
yep.
after a while, you're like, well, I can't do this because this will happen. I can't do this. Well, this will happen. And I remember thinking, I'm like, what if this dude was on a date and he was just like going the fuck off about shit like that for a while? And yeah, like any person I know that would do fucking be like, I can't deal with this person right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make me incredibly sad. But that also feels like a Mandy Moorehol collaboration to me.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. The funny thing about the collaboration is like your remembrance of what it was and my
Yeah,
remembrance of how it happened, they're very similar, but like
different.
I don't remember me telling him to go to you for anything. And I
That's so
remember
funny.
because I remember one day he goes, "Hey, I got 4 tracks. I got this whole project with Sketch." And I said, "How the fuck do you know Sketch?" And like,
That's so funny.
because to me, well, I mean, it was 2020. Just imagine where any of us were.
We
during
also were random friends, not like close in any way or anything
you,
like that.
yeah, you and I. Yeah, I mean, we've known
Yeah,
each other for a long time, but
years.
I wouldn't say we've ever like hung out outside of shows and shit. You know what I
No.
mean? Like, and that's kind of like the relationship is with rappers, anyways. You know, you either
Yeah,
get along
yeah,
with
yeah.
somebody and you hang out with them at shows and shit. You know, and I like the first time I ever heard of you was you were written up in like I think I told you the story, but like a herb magazine or some fucking underground blog that reported on the underground rap scene, and it was like
Mhm.
headline was Connecticut rapper moves to Minneapolis to do underground rap. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was the
that
first
was
time I
probably
heard
a
of you.
Adam B. It was probably an Adam B. article of sorts,
It,
something
w-
like that.
it would have been like 2008 or 9 or something, around that
Yeah, I
time.
moved. I moved to Minneapolis in '08.
Yeah.
The
See.
first time I lived there twice.
Oh, okay.
I moved to Minneapolis in '08, and in some ways, a lot of the scene felt weird about me going out there.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine.
so yeah, there was two or three articles that were written about me bouncing
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lived there through the last half of '08, something like 9 months.
Yeah.
And then I came back here in 2010. I went back out there in 2013 for like 6 or 7 months, and then I came back. But yeah, that's funny.
That's how I know you, because I remember seeing it going, man, I'm fucking jealous of that. Like, because that was the spot, that was where it
Yeah,
still is to a point, but like,
it's different now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they really had a
it's different now.
stranglehold on the underground scene out there for quite a few years.
My fascination with it was more so I would see a lot of shows coming up that would be only out there, and it was always like, man, that's a lineup of like six people I would love to be going
Yeah,
to a small show of.
yep,
And then I visited out there and I just thought it was fascinating because I was like coming across like people that were like doing the music thing successfully on a lower scale, but
right.
successfully and low on a low key level. And then look at they're like right at the gas station and everybody's accessible. And I feel like people perform better going after their goals and dreams when they're surrounded by people that are doing it successfully in some way, and
No,
especially in a small area like that too.
you're not wrong. I mean, you kind of feed off
Yeah.
of it in a way.
Yeah, and there's a path, like, you're like, "Oh, there you can do this."
Right.
And then, in addition to that, they had a scene that was, like, built around going to shows every day of the week.
Every day of the week they had shows.
Every day
That's
of the week.
Man, that's
There'd
crazy.
be some days where, uh there was one day where it was the day before, Soundset, their festival for Rhymesayers festival they
Yep,
had.
yep.
There was the day before I had uh, 3 shows the day before Soundset.
Jeez.
So I had one I had one show that was at, like, 6. I had one that was at, like, normal showtime, 8 or 9,
Yep.
and then overnight, there was a Fake 4 showcase at this place called the Sound Gallery that ran until 3:30 in the morning.
That's a
Eh
fucking whole day.
Yeah. Um, but, yeah, and on that show were, like, people that were, like, well known at the time, like, Open Mike Eagle was on it.
Yep,
Um, Chesky rocked. There POS was there with Marijuana Death Squads,
yep,
like his
I
side project.
I remember
Sean
that one.
Anonymous. But yeah, I mean, even Rat Ferreira, Milo was there just hanging out with Mike at the time. But like that's the kind of place it would be. You'd be like, "Where are we going tonight?" Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
That's
And you could
crazy.
just pop up and do shit with like very talented people. And also it was a scene that I mean, you're a producer. They breed producers there.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they have famous producers for that scene going to middle schools and teaching kids how to make beats.
That's dope. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
That
yeah,
I mean,
that's wild.
that's funny that it's funny that you say that because when I started rapping, there were
Hmm.
no producers. I didn't know any producers. And the
Yeah.
only producer I knew was Laserbeak. So
Hmm.
I emailed Laserbeak back in the day, like 05, 06, something like that.
Yeah.
And he sent me a bunch of beats, and he but he wanted like $30 a pop, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, listen to me,
Nothing
$30,
really. Yeah.
$30 now. I mean, he probably charged $1,000 for a fucking beat now.
Hmm.
But like, that was it. And I was like, shit, I can't spend $30 on a beat. And so I started learning how to produce. That was it. It's all because of
Yeah.
Laserbeak. If you just gave me
That's
those
so
beats for
funny.
free.
Yeah, they were key when I first moved out there. It was nice that I got kind of introduced to them through email, a couple of them.
Yeah,
I was cool with Sims right away. I knew Dessa right away, like right off top. I met like POS later, Cecil Otter later, a
yeah,
couple of them. Laserbeak's one of the ones I didn't really know very well, but they were key out there when I first got out there. I think the second day I was there, I met all of Doomtree except for
that's crazy.
POS.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the first person I met when I went out to Minneapolis was Idea.
That's fucking.
The first person I met, like
Dude,
9 o'clock in the
yeah,
morning.
here it is. You
Yeah,
see that?
9 o'clock in the morning.
That's
Crazy.
him at nine
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning must have been amazing.
Yeah, I met him at 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh, it was the second day. I met him at 9 o'clock in the morning. Later in the day, we went to an event at a school that was there, and I met Big Quarters, Toki Wright, um, Davey D, and all of Doomtree,
Wow.
except for POS, who
Right.
was on tour insanely in '09.
Right. Right. He was probably over here on tour.
Yeah, he was probably over here. He was going from like one tour to the next, all like crazy shit.
Yep, that would have been his Never Better album, so he would have been out
Yeah,
on
he
tour.
was
So, yep.
gone. I think that whole year he was gone except for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And the day he came back, he played one of the weirdest shows I saw out there. Do you know who Crescent Moon is?
Yes.
Yeah, so Crescent Moon was playing in Roma de Luna, which was his Americana like folk band that he had
Okay.
with his wife at the time.
Uh-huh.
Um, POS was playing with Building Better Bombs,
Yep.
which was his whole other side project that he had. It was like all side project stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Twinkie from High Respects was playing in a different band. It was like a weird show. That was the day I met POS there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's
Yeah, Minneapolis is weird, man. It was a weird experience, and the second time I went there, it was like a whole other vibe from that, like
Yeah.
that time period. That was the Lizzo era of
Oh, yeah.
Minneapolis.
Oh,
I
okay.
almost I almost was a roommate at one point. It was very crazy,
That's
crazy, crazy.
nuts. That's nuts. Well, like I said, it this whole collaborating with him with music or on the books, it's the same fucking vibe. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never know what I'm getting into,
yep,
especially even with the first one, Hella Kafka-esque. I had to
yeah.
look up what the hell that meant, like you guys are on some next. I mean, I'm just a jock who learned how to use a computer, right? Like you guys are into intellectual shit. I'm like, I have to learn all this stuff and
I
every,
said I
every
said to him at one point because he says that on one of the songs,
yeah,
and I'm like, that should definitely be the name of this project.
yeah.
I'm like, there's a cross pollination in those two words that can't be avoided. I think it's awesome. But yeah.
He's always been into that type of shit. And I'm the STEM guy. You want to talk physics and fucking
Yeah.
engineering and shit. I'm your guy to talk about that. I don't know shit about liberal arts and any of that
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? So
Poetry and such.
well, I mean I rap, but like that's different, you know what I mean? I can't say I'm sourcing fucking shit, like I don't read poetry, you know what I mean? Like
There's
other
an
than
aspect to I write in a lot of different ways. Um, and there's an aspect to certain parts of my writing that are I snatch shit from the air. So like I could turn on a television, I'll open a bunch of books, like random books, and I'll free write for 5 minutes or something like that.
yeah, it's a great tactic.
And while I'm free writing, I might hear something or pull something off of a page or whatever, and it all goes into it, and it might lead me in a direction, and I just let one line lead me to the next line and the next
Yeah.
line kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of like cut up or whatever they call that.
Kind of like cut up, but
Yeah.
like more like a Basquiat painting or something,
Okay.
where he's just taking shit, like, and then maybe he puts his coffee down on the piece. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Th-
and there's a coffee stain there now. And
I
why is
love
it
it.
there? Because he felt like putting a coffee stain there, and that's pretty much it.
That sounds like Mandy Moorehol all wrapped up into one thing, dude.
Yeah, so there's a sensibility and there's a freedom attached to doing collaborations with you guys that I appreciate very much. It just allows me some looseness,
Yeah.
but I also like to throw in some structure every once in a while that maybe he's not prepared for either.
Well,
You know?
he'll tell you I'm the structure. I'm the one who
Yeah.
he calls me Apollonian or whatever the fuck that actually means. I still he does it all the time. He's like even for the podcast, he started like, "Hey Johnny, you should gave my government out by the way. You should fucking bullet point and like really like plan out your interviews. You know, I'm worried
Mhm.
you'll get too caught off and not like." And I'm like, "Come on, man, I could talk. It's not like I'm not that fucking stuck where I can't keep a conversation going, you know, like
Yeah.
but like even with this book, like I'll start like throwing something on the page and it'll like line up really weird
Yeah.
and like not fall on the page right. And I'll start editing it to make it look right. And he'll be like, oh nah, leave it alone. It's cool. It's cool. I like it that way. And I
Yeah, some
remember
errors,
he
including some errors, yeah.
he likes them. He likes them to
Yeah.
be in there. And one time I dropped one on and it like staggered across the screen like this, like kind of like a waterfall.
Yep.
And this was a piece by Sirius 21, and he had like put a poem in there and in a picture, and it kind
Mhm.
of like fit. And then the guy's like, "Hey, I love that you did that." And I was like, "I didn't do shit. The fucking computer did it." And Manny Moorehol standing over my shoulder says, "Nah, leave it, leave it, leave it." And I'm like, "Fuck, man, who's gonna read that?" You know, like I
Yeah.
still have contention with him on like formatting and like all that stuff. But
Sometimes that's part of it too, though. Like, there's a Saul Williams book called "Said the Shotgun to the Head."
okay, yeah,
The words are on the pages like that. Like they're kind of like
really,
all over the place. Yeah.
yeah,
And you read them as you read them. They're
okay.
kind of all over the place. So that works too. You know,
Well, even
there's
like the
established precedent.
Even like the cover, right?
I love how it looks.
See
It's
that
so
weird white
great.
thing?
Yeah.
I fucking agonized over that white block for hours because like it's supposed to be black and gold, right? And this
Yep.
one little white piece sticks out and I'm like, I can't figure out where it's coming from. Like it doesn't it on my artwork on the computer, it doesn't show up anywhere.
Yeah.
But when you upload it to Amazon and this little white thing comes out of nowhere and I can't fix it. I've tried fixing it 3 or 4 times
Yep.
and I show Mandy the proof, and I'm like, "Hey, I can't fix this fucking white thing." He goes, "Oh, it's more chaos. I love it." He's like, "What do you mean you can't fix it though?" I'm like, "It's not in my artwork. Like, it's not in my file on the computer when it's only on Amazon." So some layering or something is it doesn't like it, but we left it in, and fucking, it's just this little bit of chaos just sitting
It's
right
so
on the front.
funny.
So shit
I
like
like
that
it.
I have to get over it, and like
Mhm.
it's fun. It is fun, and it's fucking, I mean, I fall asleep at my studio desk trying to work on it,
Mhm.
and it's just crazy. And then he wanted to transcribe, so the book 1 has all 4 volumes in it plus the transcript from episode 1 of the Skeleton Key, and
Yeah.
it's a 2-hour podcast of him basically like what he calls like intellectual arm wrestling me. So anytime I try to get him to actually answer a question or to like give some detail on an idea that he has, he like
Mhm.
basically dodges me and like comes around to his
So
own
funny.
conclusion. And, well, it's fucking hilarious. And but he wanted me to transcribe it. So 2 hours of transcribing a podcast that was video form first, and then
Yeah.
putting it into physical form took me fucking 2 weeks to do because it was just I had to watch it like 8 times.
Yeah,
Like
it's a lot.
it was nuts. And I was like, I remember being in the middle of it. I'm like, hey man, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like we could just I don't know, we
Yeah.
could do something else. And he's like, no, no, do it, do it. I'm telling you, it's great. And like, all right, man. And some people have really liked it. It's fucking weird. It's
You know
fucking
what's
weird
funny? I
how
remember about like I shared I shared volume 1 with my boy Corey, who he went and purchased it.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Yeah, I really like that book. Um, I really like that book. You know, at first, like, I'm like really getting into it. I'm like, yeah." And then he goes, "Man, I don't think I'm smart enough for like the rest of this book
Yep. I,
entirely."
I'm right there with him. Right there with him.
It just all falls apart at some point for him.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious, man. It's abstract art in general is how I feel about it.
Well, it's abstract art and it's relating to like, classical Greek mythology, all these other
Yeah,
legit sources of old school style of writing. Every time I go to check him and look up something and like, well, did he make this fucking thing up? I look it up like, oh
yeah.
no, he's referencing
This thing and that
some
thing,
book
yeah.
thing that I don't know. It's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what do you do with your time? How do you know all this shit? Like, you
Yeah,
know,
thousand
it's
thousand podcasts, audiobooks, and
well, that's what he does is most I mean, because I've spent time on the farm with him, right? I help him build the
yeah,
greenhouses and things like that.
yeah,
Like even being like 10 feet from me and like I've been to his farm like maybe 10 times over the last whatever 10 or 11 years he's had the farm.
yeah,
You would think he just want to hang out and like work and stuff. He just throws the ear pods in and is working and doing whatever he's doing, and then he'll be like, hey, can you go fucking do this or whatever, and I could hear him listening to something, and it's just like, what are you
yeah.
listening to? And it's some fucking intellectual fucking podcast about who knows, and I even remember he was like, he says, so our dedication is always to Cerberus. And I said, Cerberus, like the fucking three-headed dog? And he's like, yeah, you'll get it. You'll get it. And I remember, if you look at it, volume one, Cerberus, every
Yeah,
one of them is dedicated to Cerberus. And I was just like, I remember, like, what does that have to do with a three-headed dog? Like, I know, like, still, like, I'm starting to get it now because, like, I'm really getting more. He'll bring me into these live streams with these other people and like
yeah.
introduce me to them and
You're
shit
hearing
like
the
that.
conversations, you're hearing the
E-
bullshit answers to some of these questions.
Well, I'm also hearing like other people's point of views, right? And other
Yeah,
people like talking about the same
their
thing.
thoughts.
Well, because he presents it a certain way, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it doesn't always land with me and never will. That's kind of the point of our, our how it works as
Hmm.
brothers, you know what I mean? I don't know if you have brothers or not, but
I do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just how it is, right? Like you're never gonna see
We're all
everything.
different too.
Yeah, yeah.
All different.
You're never gonna see everything the same way. So I'll hear
Mm-mm.
somebody else say something he's talking about, and I'll go, "Oh fuck, that guy. What's he talking about?" And it just lands a little bit better. And then I'll start to
Hmm.
like reread what he's doing and go, "Oh shit, all right, now I can kind of see where where this is going." And
Hmm.
but it just even with the music, I mean, like I said, like you had mentioned, we were casual friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Over mostly through hip hop for the homeless, right? Like,
I would say.
yeah, and like then he starts. I forget what year it was, but he came to me and he goes, "Hey, I want to rap," and I was I was offended because I was like, "What do you mean you just want to fucking rap?" Like
You
I've
can't just
dedicated.
turn it on, blah blah
Thank you.
blah.
Yeah, I've dedicated my whole life since I was in high school to being a rapper and a producer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like everything in this room, this is my whole like this is my life. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
this is me. Like and
Yep.
it's
Yep.
funny because he'll hop on like live streams and shit. And like all this stuff is my stuff, not his. Do you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
some of these people don't know that. Um
Be asking them about certain aspects
It
and stuff in
hasn't
the
happened
background.
yet. It hasn't happened
It's
yet,
so funny.
but I can see eyes drifting. You know what I mean? Sometimes
Hmm.
like, what the fuck is that, octopus arm back there? You know what I mean? Like it's but yeah, he just goes, "Oh, I want to rap." And I'm just like, oh, you can't just we're just gonna be a
We shot
rapper?
a video in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, you came to my house and shot a music video, man. Like that was
That was
crazy.
how I met him.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're
That was the day I met him.
I remember you say that. Like, oh, you never actually met him before. Like
Yeah, it's hilarious.
it's really funny, man. Everyone thinks he's my older brother too, which is
That's so funny.
every single time they're like, "Oh, you're the younger brother?" And I'm like, "Nah, man. Like I'm 2 years older than him." And it's always a funny thing. Uh, but like even with the music, like he wanted to rap, so he had a bunch of
Yeah.
he wanted to learn how to make beats, and I'm like, oh, you're just gonna learn how to make beats?
He was playing though, right?
Oh yeah, he's a drummer. He's a musician.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah, he
he's
was
not.
playing for like a while
Oh
though.
yeah, he's always had a guitar. He's always like that was
Yeah,
he's always been playing. Like his first song he ever wrote was about me. It was called Johnny
that's
Kisses
funny.
Guys. It was it was a funny song. He plays it sometimes while we're working, and he still remembers how to play it. It's a really funny fucking track. But yeah, he was in hardcore bands and shit. So like
Yeah,
if you're a musician transitioning to being a producer, I
yeah,
mean,
it's different.
once you learn how it's all set up and shit, but
Yeah.
I had my whole library, so I just showed him how to search the library and how to search like drums and all these
Oh,
different
pull
plug.
sounds from
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I have loops and samples and all that shit, just
Yeah.
sitting on a hard drive. So I taught him how to search it, taught him where to do it, kind of show him how it all laid out,
Yeah.
and he doesn't stick to any song structure as if you've
Yeah.
noticed. Like he
Yeah.
does his own fucking thing, and he doesn't care, and it's great.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. He makes one verse songs and then leaves the half of the song left, and
Or doesn't start the vocal until 2 minutes into the song or
right,
something.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
but
yeah, and there, every once in a while I'll throw a format at him.
yep, I know,
I'll be like, based on the way this sounds, I'm gonna take the middle section of this and flip it in reverse, and that'll be the part where you do a vocal on,
yeah,
and then I'm gonna come back in or whatever. Or like he sent me those 4 beats once just to listen to. What
yeah.
do you think it is? This kind of sounds jazzy. What do you think? I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna use all of those for one song
That's
and
great.
go from there. But yeah, I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts on like the other forwards that we wrote?
Yeah, I mean the latest one that you sent for volume 5.
Oh, the newest one?
You want to talk? We
The
could,
one I
because that.
was agonizing over?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
I
it is.
don't know what happened, but I was agonizing over it for a minute.
It happens, dude.
Yeah, my brain cracked out of nowhere and I was like, "Oh, I got it."
Mine does that. Did it? Hold up. Oh, it's on a different window. Hold up. Still learning how to use this shit, everyone.
Pulling it up.
Can you see it or no?
I see the Kafkaesque at the moment.
Yeah. All right. Oh,
I
that's the
fucking
old one.
love that cover too.
Yeah, that one came out great. That was awesome though. You the latest one, you got, like you said, all caught up trying to write it.
Yeah.
Let me see. I was gonna pull it up. PDF. There it goes.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember how I can't remember how it starts
You
off the
called
top of
it
my head.
Forward by Sketch Cataclysm.
Oh my God.
A forward, a letter to the readers of my post harmon. What's that word?
Posthumous.
Posthumous, yeah, biography. See, now you're really letting everybody know how much I don't know how to read. But yeah,
Yeah, so I had a thought for like a long time. I would read like I loved reading like biographies in general for like the longest period of time.
yeah,
And at some point I got really like into like the thoughts of it, like of how would this person feel about this biography afterward, you know?
yeah,
Like is this like a picture of this person? And then you'd have things like all right, so I think I might mention it in there. Richard Pryor in there.
oh,
I
maybe,
don't know. Maybe I don't. But it clicked in my brain because I had a couple of different Richard Pryor biographies.
yeah,
And I was like, they're all different. Some of them are terrible, some of them are good. But how accurate is the picture of the person being painted in there? You
right.
know?
Well, because you never know what's the intention of the person writing the biography. You know what I mean? Like
There's
who?
that. There's the viewpoints and the words from the people around them too. Like it's all painted by their own opinions of that person more so than an accurate description of them, and you're trying to rely on them as like an accurate
Yeah,
source of who this person is, and then
yeah,
that person isn't even an accurate depiction of themselves. I'd go off about that for a while, and there was a song I was gonna put a song on this solo album that was about it, and I couldn't find a way to attack it really, like
Right.
how I wanted to approach it. And what did I do? Oh, I pulled out a couple of books real quick. I was about to just go through them and see like if anything like hit my brain. And then I put the books down. I sat there for a second and I was like, "Oh, all right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write the foreword to this book that doesn't exist. That's about me and use it as the foreword of this book."
I love it.
There's
I
always
love
a
it.
way to fit in like random concepts that I have in my brain to the things that you guys do.
Right.
Like just odd whatever, romantic, spiritual, whatever. I could find a way to fit it in there. And you had sent me where you were at with the book at some point, so I had that in my brain too.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm like, ah, nah, this works. This works. I want to stick that in there. And I also there's another part of writing these forwards that is important too. Is I try to write them all in one shot, like
Right.
straight through,
Right.
as fast as humanly possible. Just write them straight through, and when it's done, and I feel good about it. The ones that I tried to write and I had to stop, I always end up just getting rid of. And I think that happened this time too,
I think you're right. Yeah.
where I said I had started something and I didn't get to finish it.
Right.
I scrapped it, and then maybe that'll come become an idea for something else in the future.
Mhm. Mhm.
It'll
Yeah, but
pop back up.
I don't see anything wrong with that though. I mean, that's
Mhm.
kind of the old get in the booth and spit it out, kind of thing where you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I could never
Yep.
fucking do that. I always had to stop and take takes and shit, but like, you hear some of these dudes that get in there, one take and fucking they're done, and
Mhm.
they already they knew it or they had it memorized or it just came off the freestyle, which is very rare by the way. That does not happen very often.
How do
But
you
like
approach your writing aspect of this?
for the book,
Yeah.
it's very fun actually because my outlet is Skobie One and my channel is Sentinel Vega, right? So if you see
Yeah.
Sentinel Vega, that's me. And
Yep.
it started as me trying to be like real personal and like let out some shit. And so volume 1 is a story about me playing outside with my kids and they have this like
Mhm.
blow up water park thing.
Yep.
And I stood up one day to walk inside to get a drink or whatever and I stepped on a bee and it fucking swolled my foot up and I didn't know I stepped on a bee. I thought I stepped on something or whatever. And this was when we first started the book. So I started scribing it out and writing the story and Mandy read it and he's like, "Oh, I love it. Put it in the book."
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it. And I put it in the book and it's my mother-in-law's favorite part of the book so far is that story, because
That's
she
kind of how that's kind of like how 3 the one I did for 3 was.
yeah.
It was like that. I think that's the one, if I remember correctly, 3 I could look at it real quick. I got it right here. I don't have 4.
You don't have 4?
No.
Okay.
But hold on a sec.
We'll fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is that one. It was the one that was about memories.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was about memories. That's kinda how that was, because that's another thing that was, like, one of these things that was, banging around in my brain for a while, and I didn't know how to put it into a song. So, like,
Right.
"Oh, just talk about it." How about, like, when, somebody asks you, like, what your first memory is,
Yeah.
and then, your first memory is something from when you were 5? That doesn't make any sense. There was a lot of things that happened before that.
No, it
But it
doesn't.
it leads to a lot of, like, personal things, and you sharing a story like that, where it's, like, something personal is where I get the window to be able to do things like that
Yeah.
on these projects.
So that's why I intentionally took not to be personal, but I
Yeah.
intentionally tried to write sci-fi for book 2, volume 1,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
186,000 slices per second, right? Which is the
Mhm.
speed of light. And it was
Yep.
it was basically I was watching a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson and he had
Yeah.
mentioned about how he got nerded out by somebody who asked him how long it would take for a pizza to cook on Venus. And he said 7 seconds. And he said somebody in the comments out nerded him and said, did you think about the atmospheric pressure of 900 degrees, blah, blah, blah. And he said, no shit. It's going to take 2.5 seconds to cook a pizza on Venus. So I saw that and I was immediately inspired that Venus was the best pizza oven in the solar system. So then I wrote down a bunch of ideas and came up with the concept of, Vinny's Vesuvian pizza, 180,000 slices per second, right? And I tried to write like a kind of like a Philip K. Dick Hitchhiker's Guide, kind of just fucking crazy sci-fi story about a pizza delivery guy who delivers pizza from Venus. Because I'm starting to see that we are inspiring other artists to do stuff, and Mandy's mentioned it, but I never really noticed until lately, where he starts dropping me into these live streams, and somebody drew a picture that we included. Her name's Rachel K. In the next book, that she drew a picture while we were live streaming with Snappy or something.
Nice.
And so we're inspiring people to do art. And so I was like, well, maybe if I write something, maybe it'll help other people want to write sci-fi, because I love sci-fi. So like you said, like
Sci-fi is a good vehicle too for other thoughts and ideas too.
Right.
Philip K. Dick's a great example of that.
I've
Finds
read
way to fit like parts of his like life ideas into sci-fi narratives.
Yeah, you could sprinkle it in without having to be too like.
Yeah, it's a metaphor. It turns into a big metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is what Mandy's doing in general, is everything's like this big metaphor that you'll never understand,
There's that what's that there's a Philip K. Dick book. It's like the transmigration of Timothy Archer or something like that.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's something like that, but I remember I had a book, What If Our World Was Their Heaven, which is like an interview book with him.
Yep.
And that's where I got the Owl and Daylight stuff from too.
Right. Yeah,
but he talks about writing he talks about writing a character into a book that's smarter than you. And how that's impossible to write a character in a book that's smarter than you because you're the one that's writing it.
Right.
But he felt like he had come across a character that knew more than he knew about things.
Oh, that's dope.
Probably a lot of drugs involved in that.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, those are those kind of ideas that come out of sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's like the Scanner Darkly and all those other crazy shit that he wrote. It just early on I listened to all of that stuff on like LibriVox, which is like a free podcast thing. I can't find those anymore, but yeah, I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan, and I got that from LP, because LP had mentioned
a period of time on that with me too. I liked a lot of the movies that were based on his books.
Yeah.
And then you find out the books are like way different from like any of the movies.
Of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Like way different in some cases.
Well, because they can only put so much into a movie, you know what I mean? And you really he gotta cut out a bunch of shit that might shake somebody the wrong way, like.
Yeah.
But I got Philip K. Dick from LP. He mentioned it in a song, and I was like, who the fuck is Philip K. Dick? So I looked him up and started reading his stuff, and right back to hip hop, baby. It's crazy though,
Yeah, that dude had a Blade Runner obsession, so I'm sure that's where that came from.
Yeah. He's obsessed with the soundtrack from Blade Runner.
Yeah, and then Blade Runner leads to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep that it's based on, and then you just go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you get lost in it. Like, it's crazy. But that's why, it's funny that he mentioned you. He's like, oh, I want Sketch to do the forwards. And I was like, this works perfectly. It works perfectly, because that's literally what you did with the music. You just threw a project at him.
The same kind of thing.
Yeah. But you guys have done shows.
Funny.
You guys have done how many
shows? Let me ask you a question though.
Yeah.
How do you think he came across having me do that song?
I have no idea. I have no idea. He might have straight up asked me.
Different people that might be.
He could have. He really could have, and I could have been
So
like, I
funny.
don't know, sketch is right up your alley. Like,
Yeah.
I probably would have mentioned Old Self or somebody like that. Like
Yeah.
people are smarter than me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
That's so
like,
funny.
well, because he's into that style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I had to like learn that style. The what's that fucking mellow music? That album, that record label.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he
Like those
loves.
kinds of rappers.
Yeah, he loves that stuff. Like he'll listen to
Solemn Brigham and Odyssey and
Lando Chill, somebody he really
yeah,
liked.
Lando Chill's another person.
Um, I mean, it's all good music, but like
Hmm.
I was raised on fucking Eminem and Tupac and fucking.
Freaking Homeboy Sandman, Brother Ali just put out an album on that label.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Brother
Yep.
Ali just put out his latest album on Mellow Music. I
Yep.
forget who I was texting about that because I was blown away that they would put that out on a fucking Mellow Music. I can't believe
He has
Rhymesayers
his
let him
own
do that.
label.
Oh
He's his
yeah,
own label now.
he is
He
his own
left
label now.
Rhymesayers a few years ago, put out a few projects on his own and then put this out.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah,
That's
it all
interesting. That's really interesting that. I mean,
What
that's
were
how
you
it.
gonna say about the shows?
How many shows have you guys done together?
I don't know. Quite a few though.
Yeah, yeah, quite a few
Quite a few.
though.
We did the book related one not too long ago too.
Yep, that was
When
June.
volume 4 came out.
Yeah, that was a
Um
fucking trip.
yeah.
That was
I
crazy.
randomly just got there on time and then had to leave immediately after my
Mhm.
set.
Yeah,
Booked it out of there.
that's how it goes, man.
Yep, 3 different events in one day. That's my life.
Real dad shit right there. That's yeah, but
Yeah.
doing a rap show at a book show was really crazy. You
My
know?
first post-pandemic show was a show with you guys in
Oh,
fucking what the
Willimantic?
hell's Willimantic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that rundown.
Outside.
There was a run. It's a rundown. It's a rundown like movie or music venue that
Mhm.
didn't have a stage anymore, but they had a stage in the back. So
Yeah, outside.
it was during the pandemic, so they could
Yeah.
do shows outside. That's pretty crazy. That and
Things
then
shut down not too long after that again too, though.
yeah, I
It
think they
was
did.
like
Yeah,
that popped off for like a couple weeks. I did a show at Crunch House too,
yeah,
and then all that shit got shut down again,
yeah.
and then there was nothing for like a couple of months. But yeah, I remember like that was like one of the things I'm like, "Oh shit, look at that. We got a show popping off in Willimantic."
Willimantic. Damn,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
crazy.
It is crazy, right?
And I hadn't played there in like years either. That was
Right.
like the first time I rocked there in like 5, 6 years maybe.
Yeah,
Nuts.
I haven't played Willimantic in a long time. I mean,
It's crazy.
I haven't really played since I had kids, so but
Yeah.
I play DJ and, I try to get out, but it's so much easier to just make beats. Like
Yeah.
rapping was always such a harder thing for me to do. You know what I mean? It didn't come naturally. It wasn't easy. So every show was always this like mind fuck of like trying to get over the anxiety of going
That's
out.
my boy Dito 22 that's in the 50x50s with me.
Yep, yep.
Dito's entirely like that. Like the hitting the stage stuff is definitely like a oof.
Yeah, yeah.
Thing for him. He'd rather be just making beats and such. And we
Ye
both do that. So I mean, yeah, I just have a different perspective on it. I love rocking shows.
Right. Well, yeah, you're mad comfortable up there. You take your shoes off and shit,
I
It's
do.
like
I
that's
do.
yeah. I mean, that's like Enemy. Enemy is always ready to do a show at any minute of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just
Yep.
don't have that. Although I did when I ran around with just him for like a few years, I was starting to get in the vibe a
Getting in
little.
a vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feeding off of it, you know what I mean? Because he like has that energy where you just feed off of him.
Yep.
But when it's just me, it was so hard to like get into it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because well, part of it too is not to like sidetrack, but like part of it too is like I was always a part of his crew, and then when I
Yeah.
try to start doing my own thing, it's like, are these people here to see me or are they here to see Enemy? And then they didn't know he
Yeah.
wasn't there. Like there's all this weird kind of things that I worried about for no reason. But yeah, it's funny though. Like mostly hip hop for the homeless is when I get out and do a show
Yeah,
once or twice a
that's
year.
good
You
though.
know,
You
it's
pop up for other stuff too.
yeah. I try to
Yeah,
get out, man. I mean, it's
whenever there's an occasion.
but it's hard, you know. Like
Yep, yep.
when you got well, my kids are a little bit older now, so it's a lot easier than like leaving babies home with my wife. You know what I mean? Like,
You were
I,
involved in one of my most epic shows I played in recent memory.
oh yeah,
The
which one was that?
the indie rappers do it for gas money
Yeah,
anniversary show
yeah. That
where I
show was
did 3 sets that night.
fucking crazy. That was a good show. Cafe
Yeah,
9?
yeah, Cafe 9,
Yeah,
3
yeah.
sets, outfit changes and
Yeah, I
everything.
remember that,
That
yeah.
was nuts.
Yeah,
That was nuts. That's a way to get a nice, round picture of like how things are too.
right.
I'm very many people, and you guys, allow me to express that through the forwards too.
Well, that's I find it, the book is way different than I expected. In some ways,
Mhm,
it's easier than music, and in some ways, it's harder, you know what I mean? But
mhm.
it's easier because it's like I don't know how to say it, but, like, you could, like, save it, walk away, and come back, and, like, it's still there, whereas, like, music, for some reason, if you walk away from an idea and then come back to it,
Could lose it or it
yeah,
changes
it
and
changes, it's not the same, like, vibe, you know, like, mixing something after I wrote it feels different than if I mixed it right after I wrote it kinda thing, you
mhm.
know? Whereas the book, I don't know, it seems like I can always kinda get back into it.
Yep.
Maybe it's 'cause I'm not so emotionally invested in it that I can, like, snap back into it because it's not all mine. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
In a way,
I attached a lot of emotional investment into the especially like the last 3. I've
right.
attached a lot of emotional investment in it. The first 2, I was trying to find ways that to make sure I was in, a humorous tone,
Yeah.
like, in there in some way. The first one, channeling like, Hunter S. Thompson kind of voice when I was writing it,
Yeah.
which blends very well with the Mandy Moorehol world
Oh,
and the
yeah, that
Towel of Minerva.
will that fits right in with him. Yeah, that's his type of people right there, you know? It's funny though, because like, we'll put music on the background, and, you know, he'll just pick out these random bands and shit, and people I've never heard of, rappers I never heard of, uh, and it's always something super strange that I've never like, I don't know what the fuck the last one was, like, something gut something, and it was like, the it's just
Yeah,
crazy.
that's probably what it's called. It's got something.
Yeah, it's gut purge or gut something, you know, it's some crazy metal band thing that I never heard of that's super abstract and, you know, that's kinda like where Sentinel Vega started was he made all these heavy, fucking metal tracks, like, he wrote them all and,
Mhm.
recorded them. He's like, "Hey, Johnny, you should fucking scream over these." And, like, my son's room is right below my studio. My daughter's is right over here, you know, it kinda splits the house right in the middle kinda thing. And, so I had to figure out how do I fucking scream metal vocals in the middle of the night without, like, waking my kids up, you know? So
Upsetting
I had s
everybody.
yeah, so I had to figure out how to, like, uh run the mic in through a guitar cab and do the effects so that I can make it screamy sound without actually having to scream. And then yeah, we got a bunch of tracks. I just haven't put them out yet, and he's gonna hate me for that. But like, you know, he just says just put them all out, put them all out. And I mean, it's hard for me because I am kind of emotionally invested in those songs because
Yeah.
I put a lot of work into them, and it's
Some of this is just like that though, man. You just throw stuff out there and see what happens. I was talking to Dito earlier about our album Bruise. I'm like, it's amazing to me how unlistened to this project is that we put all this into.
yeah,
And the quality of work that came out of it feels like it's meant for more ears than it actually touched.
and that
You know,
happens though.
it
Like,
happens.
yeah, I mean, I got the tape. That's what I was looking over my shoulder. The tape's over there next to the octopus. It's over there on the Yeah, no, the 50/50s is a great fucking. I turned that on at Hip Hop for the Homeless this year. That was my background music
Yeah,
for in between artists and shit. So
it's awesome.
it's got a good variety, you know. So it was like, and I hadn't heard some of that shit, you know.
That's all us. That's us. Like variety.
Yeah. Do you what else you got going on? You got any more ideas? Are you gonna
um,
submit some writing? You just want to do forwards?
I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. I'm always down. Always down. I always have a lot of ideas. The biggest thing with doing stuff with you guys is what angle I want to take on things.
Right.
I never know which way I want to go with it. And then some of the stuff I'm like, ah, that doesn't really fit for our vibe exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I break with that entirely. I think that was it like track 2 of volume 3 of the Helicopter projects, where I literally apologized to Mandy on the song. I'm like, I went in a whole other direction, man. I was like crying after doing like one of these tracks.
I remember you telling me getting real emotional after one of those.
Oh my God, I got torn to shit up like after that
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not really what this is all made for.
That was about your friend, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my friends that died, and the feeling of uh they asked you to hang out, that kind of shit just
Yeah.
destroys you.
Yeah.
But
I got a
I was
similar
like,
story with
hey, that's where this beat took me. This is where I'm going with it. Sorry.
and you put it out there, you know, that's
That's where it goes sometimes, but I try to stick into the to what feels like the vibe as much as I can, but being in my own lane, stretch it out a
right,
little bit.
right. Well, that's part of his vibe is that there is no vibe. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh. There's a
anytime,
feel though. There's a
yeah,
feel.
I still haven't figured it out, but like
It's
it
in there.
but every time anytime I do like artwork or like right now we're uploading a song a day, right? So he has just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what he does.
Tons.
He comes up here and just writes beats. Like, you know,
Yep.
he usually gets here about 5 and kids are normally asleep by 8, 8:30. So he's up here for hours by himself, just making beats. So he's got a bunch of them all lined up and I'm like, "Hey, what do you want to do album art like wise?" And he's like, "I don't give a shit. Just whatever. Put anything out as album art." And so I just put anything out and he's never questioned it, and eventually get in a groove and it's just like, all right, this is what your branding looks like, and he doesn't care,
Yep.
you know what I mean? He does not care about any of that stuff, and it's really funny, you know. So I have to like lean into that a little more. It's like, well, I've been producing since 2005. You know how many songs I just got sitting on the hard drive that
Yeah.
I should just
They're just there.
yeah. Sorry, can you hear my shit going off?
The music or something?
No, no, that was like my phone is hooked to my.
Oh, no, no, I
Oh, you
didn't I
can't
didn't
hear it?
hear it.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still learning how this program works,
Mine
but like,
keeps blowing up too. Like while I've been on with you, it's been blowing up. But
and
it
you,
is what it is.
yeah, I can't hear yours though, so that's good.
All right.
That's
Awesome.
interesting. They built that into this. Yo, because yeah, I embarrassingly built this rig. Like I got a camera
Yeah.
mounted with the light and shit. I built it in
Yep.
2021 because I wanted to do like a streaming, like making beats online thing and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I built it and I just could never get it to sound right. Or I could never get
Mm.
like the music to play the right way, or there was some weird
That's
delay
a
and all
whole
this
thing, man.
shit.
That's a 2020 thing of like
It,
having to learn how to play the beats correctly through the setup because it always sounds kind of shitty, like
yeah.
for the most part. You
But
know how many live streams I did in 2020 that were like total garbage?
I can imagine, man. I can imagine.
Like random rigs and setups that you try to work with. Ugh.
I was trying to build like an OBS one. I just could never get Ableton to sound right in it. And then when I did it,
Yeah.
like sometimes it just frees. This program, this is StreamYards, seems really legit and like
Mm.
doesn't seem to hang up at all. I mean, we've been going an hour and 10 minutes now and
Yeah.
no blips, no
No
nothing. And
problems.
you know, flipping between these little settings and shit, it's real cool. You know, like I like it. I
I
might
love
try
that
to.
framing. That's awesome.
Oh, you like the frogs?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. It's real Greek inspired, and Mandy loved it, so he said, "Go with it, do it." I'm like, "All right, I'm." I wanted to clean it up. I wanted to do this. He's like, "Nah, fuck it, leave it alone. Just go with it." Blah blah blah. And so yeah, I'm
It's
winging
pretty
it.
rad.
This is winging it. You know what I mean? Like you and I mean, we talked before, like, hey, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. Let's just talk. Let's do it. Like I mean, we have been friends for a long time.
Yeah, at this point, it's a lot invested.
Yeah. I
A lot of
mean,
collaborations at this point as well.
that's true. You
Yep.
and him might be one of the most collaborated people I've ever actually, worked with. That
We
like,
got quite a bit of material at this point. I mean, I put together a Spotify playlist. It has the EPs on it, but we also have done a lot of like random one-offs
yeah,
or features. I did a feature on your guys' project
yep,
at one point too.
yep.
Um, but yeah, we've got like I think we got well over an hour and change of music.
It's fucking crazy, right?
Yeah,
That's
we have one 7-minute song too. So
oh yeah. I remember that one. Oh, I'll have to put your playlist in the show notes and shit, and we'll do
oh,
that.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
We got that masterful the SB the More track
Oh,
too.
oh yeah, yeah. Now,
That was AI involved to make that happen.
really?
Yeah, because the vocal was not mixed correctly or something. So he said that you had to like separate the tracks with some program
Oh
in
yeah,
order to
yeah.
be able to pull the vocal out and mix it correctly.
Yeah, okay, I remember this now. See, this is how much we work on shit that
Yeah.
I really don't remember all the time what we worked on, but I
So I
remember
guess
this
he
now.
had gotten like 2 features from one of them was fine, worked
Yep,
out fine, and then the
yep,
other one sounded good, but it was like the mix was just terrible, and
yep,
then there was room at the end. He's
yep,
like, "You could just have it if you want this track," and I'm like, "Yeah, cool, if we could, like, fix it up a little bit." And then he said that you had gotten a AI
yep,
program to separate the tracks,
yep.
pulled the vocal out, and then was able to remix it.
Yeah,
It's awesome when that happens.
yeah, I remember that
And
now.
yeah, and I made a shitty video up right before I went to work one day of me listening to his verse and then getting on a treadmill and rapping for the next like
That's
2 minutes.
that's fucking dope. I love that you put your practice out there, by the way, that video you put out the other day.
Oh, word. Yeah, I do every once in a while I'll hop on an Instagram live and I'll rehearse a whole set while I'm driving to work. Because some of those drives can be long.
Right.
I'll do like a 45-minute set in the car driving.
That that every rapper I know does that,
Yeah.
to some extent. I mean, I remember, uh, he changed his name, so I don't know what to call him anymore, but, like, he would drive to Providence, and he would practice from New London all the way to Providence, practicing, and he would just
Yeah.
rap, rap, and rap, and rap, and then he'd come home, and then we work on an album together, and, like, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I came up with that in the car at 4 in the morning," and, you know, that was
I
how
used
I
to do those sets where it would be like 2 hours of music. I would do like 2 hours and change before tours just to make sure like my brain was functioning correctly to be able to remember stuff
right,
and pull it out at random. And that was like fucking 10 years ago. So like
right.
now it would be a little ridiculous.
Well,
But yeah, I'd still pull like wild sets while driving in the car too. Like,
you know what's really funny to me is I listen to some of these hip hop shows once in a while, and
yeah,
they'll call it freestyling, and they'll just put on a beat and expect the dude to rap his own verse over it, and I'm like, "Yo,
yeah,
that's called practice. What are we talking about freestyling?
yeah,
Like, that's what
yeah.
you just rap whatever was on the radio or on your MP3
Mhm.
player, like, anything that came up, you rap over it, and that was how you learned to cut in the groove and find different flows on shit, you know?"
Angles.
Yeah. But they call that freestyling now, like, what?
So what's up for the next book?
So that comes out on Friday, so I'll hopefully put this video out tonight or tomorrow, depends on how long it takes to make it work. Um,
And prep for Friday.
Prep for Friday, yep. So Friday it comes out. You can pre-order it lets you pre-order the fucking Kindle, but not the paperback. And I don't know if that's just because, yeah, I think maybe you got to submit it like a month ahead of time. I don't know. I still have to figure
Okay.
that out. But for some reason, it lets you do a week ahead of time with the Kindle. So like, I don't really understand what the difference is. Or maybe you got to meet some tier to pre-order kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like sell an X amount of copies or whatever.
So
But
Friday is
the 7th.
uh yeah, Friday, the launching of volume 1 of book 2.
That's right. Yep. Volume 1 of
All
book 2.
right. That's awesome.
It is awesome. And you are the first interview to talk about it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Who's up next?
Don't know yet. I don't know cuz Mandy's been hounding me for years about starting this shit.
Yeah.
And one night I was like, "All right, fuck it. I'll hit SketchUp and I will actually follow through this time and we'll
Yep.
start this shit." You know what I mean? Because even like I mentioned it, like I was still got a little nervous doing this. I'm like, oh no, if I hit the button, what's gonna
See, that's
happen?
why the podcast, a lot of them do the thing where they're already talking when they start it.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's interesting. That's a way to do it. I don't have a young Jamie though, so I gotta. But it was cool because I hit the button and record, and it played the intro for me. So I had like
Yep.
5 seconds to take a sip of water, and then it even muted my mic for me, which was dope. So
Yeah,
like,
did
I don't
mine
know.
too. Yep.
Yeah, it's making me feel more comfortable, which is nice. And yeah, I don't know. So I feel like more of this will come, and I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. If you need me back too, I'm always down to
Oh,
come back.
absolutely. Yeah. We'll figure out schedules and shit. Like we could always chop it up about whatever. Like
All right, man. So I
well,
guess that's it then, right?
I think so. I think we're good.
We're at a landing spot.
I
It's
think
nice
so.
to talk to you, man. It's
Hell
very
yeah,
good to
dude.
talk to you.
All right. Everybody say piece of sketch. Thank you.
All right, man.